Hi, this is Brian Koshley with AVRP Studios, and we are celebrating Women's History Month. And with us today is Elizabeth Luo. Liz, welcome.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Luo. I'm an architect with AVRP Studios.
Awesome. So Liz, let's spend a couple of minutes. Tell us when you first kind of became aware of the design architecture profession as a young woman.
That kind of snuck up on me a little bit. I don't think I ever really realized that architecture is what I wanted to do. There's little hints of it, like, for instance, like my middle school promotion project or exhibition that we had to do was on my dream house, where I did a basic floor plan and figured out what I wanted in my dream house. But since then, it hasn't really been on the forefront of my education. I went into college thinking I was going to be a biz econ major, and then quickly found out I was no good at accounting or economics at all. So it ended up that my minor was in art history with an emphasis in architecture. And that's kind of really when I started understanding and getting more interested in architecture itself, the history of architecture, and sort of propelling myself into more design oriented architecture. And graduated with a BA in art history, and then went and got my graduate degree in architecture.
Excellent. Where'd you get your graduate degree?
From the New School of Architecture and Design, which is about a block away from our office in downtown San Diego.
Excellent. So talk a little bit about that. What was the gender mix in that graduate program? Was it fairly well mixed, or was it kind of shifted one way or the other?
I would say that the class structure wise, was pretty well mixed. We had, probably even numbers of women and men, and it definitely, because we were in the 4+3 program, there was a huge mix of people from different backgrounds. The 4+2 program is architecture BA into architecture masters, whereas the 4+3, everybody had a different background. I had art history. Some people were went to law school beforehand. I had friends who were psychology majors and things like that. So that was a really interesting mix of learning architecture from all these other different perspectives.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how'd you come to work at AVRP Studios?
So after I graduated, I was really in touch with the career services department at New School of Architecture and Design. And they, said, hey, AVRP is looking for an entry-level position, and would you like to go and interview? And I did. At the time, AVRP Studios was, coming out of the recession. They were looking for someone to sit at the front desk and do part-time administration work, as well as part-time, architecture and design work. So I spent, 2.5 years roughly of, at the front desk doing both jobs, and, being able to manage both those sides before being able to have the opportunity to do architecture full-time and get a new desk.
That's so interesting. My first job in the profession, I covered the front desk as well, and answered phones, meet and greet, and when there was nothing else going on, then I was cranking away, drawing on the boards. So I think that's the way a lot of folks kind of enter the world, especially in smaller firms.
It's definitely interesting because you get to understand sort of the inner workings behind the firm, in that process, and everything behind the scenes as far as well, this answer it's interesting because you get to kind of understand things behind the scenes in the firm for what goes on aside from just the architecture, but the business side of it that I didn't quite get into during college and things like that. So.
Yeah, I'm sure. If you had advice for any other women in the industry, what would be one piece of advice you would offer to women in the industry?
Definitely find a good mentor and find a good support group. It doesn't have to necessarily be women, but find people that have your same interests and who can give you advice for things that come up that you don't know how to handle a situation or something like that, and not necessarily just project specific things, but just for your career in general, where you want to go. And the other thing I would say is, don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. A lot of people say, there are no stupid questions, but for me, I think saying that there are stupid questions is one of the first steps to recognizing that there is a fear of looking inexperienced and feeling like you're not up to par with where you should be or something like that. And to acknowledge that, I think, is the first step to conquering that fear and asking questions that you might not know where they might lead. It might be something where you understand better what your mistake could have been or something like that, so you won't make the mistake again. Or asking a question of why do you do that, because that might actually bloom into a bigger question of understanding the whole process and the bigger picture, instead of just their one task at hand.
That's a great piece of advice. I think one of the things we miss in the profession is kind of the old guild aspect, that we're here to mentor, and we all benefited throughout the course of our career from mentorship, and we in turn have to turn around and invest in our young talent as well. If we could create a time machine and send you back so that you could talk to your former self or your young self, would there be a piece of advice you'd offer to yourself now that you've been in the profession for over a decade?
I would say mostly not to be afraid and to be bold with your choices and to be confident in those decisions, because a lot of coming into this, I was afraid of even touching somebody else's drawing coming in. I would do the thing where I would save a copy of it, which is another great piece of advice: always save your work. But save a copy of it so that just in case I made a mistake, and they could go back to the drawing board and go back to square one if they needed to. But to have the confidence to be able to speak up and say things and make those decisions and do the work and drawings. There's plenty of times when I've gone into a room and been totally intimidated, especially getting into, the construction side of it, of where I am currently in the projects I'm working on. You step into a job trailer and it's mostly men, and a lot of them are bigger than me. And there's been plenty of times during my career where I've been not only the only woman in the room, or I've been certainly the youngest or most inexperienced person there, or I've been the only person of color in the room. That that means something, and that means that I need to speak up for myself and be represented and show that there's more to me than just what meets the eye.
That's really well said. So then finally, the theme for this year's Women's History Month, and in particular International Women's Day, is choose to challenge. How would you kind of apply that statement, either personally or professionally? What does that statement mean to you?
I think in the world we live in right now, it's very much instant gratification, of snap judgments about people. And I choose to challenge the perception that everyone has of not only themselves, but each other. Challenge yourself to how people perceive you and how you want to be perceived. Challenge people that so that you bring them up as well and support them. You can see their talent and how you perceive them. Why can't they perceive themselves in that same way? And also for people that are shy and kind of unassuming and things like that, you never know what striking up a conversation with them might lead to, as far as understanding them better and things like that, instead of just taking them for face value.
Wow, that's great advice. Great advice. Well, hey, thank you so much. I know you had a super busy day today, so I really appreciate you squeezing us in, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.